Ladies and gentlemen, we decided we wanted to do something a little bit different here because we are both not even becoming, but we just both are such massive fans of Lucha Underground and the Lucha Underground universe and everything having to do with Lucha Underground. They, this past week, released the first issue of the Lucha Underground comic. And John and I both read this, and I think that the big thing that we really wanted to talk to you guys about is the fact that this comic actually is canon. It does take, and that's canon with one N, not two. Well, two, not three, I guess I should say. But it does take place within the Lucha Underground universe. And this first issue, at least, I don't know if any of the other issues are going to follow this trend, but the first issue shows a few events that happened between seasons 1 and 2 of Lucha Underground. So even though, I mean, admittedly, you don't need to read the comics in order to know what's going on the Lucha Underground show, it helps to fill in some of the gaps. And I love that. And I know, John, you're going to talk about how much you love it too in a second. But I just think that we really wanted to get on here and talk about this first comic. And if you guys enjoy kind of having this discussion about the comics, we will continue making videos on them. So, John, what do you think?
I just love, to echo your sentiments, that these comics afford the reader a more complete picture of the goings on of the temple and the luchadors and luchadoras that, make it possible. I was even telling you in conversation before recording, I don't know if Lucha Underground's the first company to do this. I'm not making that claim, but I love that Lucha Underground utilizes multiple mediums to tell the same story. First television and now comics. I feel like a lot of popular shows, they may develop a comic or something that's independent from the main television product, and here Lucha Underground has actually managed a merger between the two, and I really love that. I think this is great. I think it just shows the growth of the Lucha Underground brand and its momentum. I think it's cooking on all cylinders right now, and this is a great first issue, and I think really does set the tone for what we can expect in future comics, because even if future comics, to me, are offering more backstory on more obscure characters, like, say, for example, if there was an issue devoted solely to, like, Marty the Moth or something, like, they've got a really cool opportunity to do something unique here, and I think the first issue already takes full advantage of that fact.
Yeah, it's really good. And the most backstory that we do get in this first issue is Rey Mysterio. This is honestly, it's funny because they didn't debut Mysterio on the first episode of season 2 when they actually have him, but what they did do is they used the comic to introduce him. So in a roundabout sense, this is Rey Mysterio's Lucha Underground debut. Now I know it doesn't actually count because it's not on television, but this is the first hint of Rey Mysterio that we are seeing in the Lucha Underground universe, and it's pretty great.
And I love how they're teasing it out too. This to me again just further acknowledges they know what they have in Rey Mysterio. They know the value of his brand and like what he means to Mexico and Lucha Libre. And here he appears in this comic just to remind you, hey, just because he wasn't on the season premiere doesn't mean he isn't lurking. Doesn't mean he isn't ready to strike in the name of justice. He's coming, and I love that, dude. I'm just doing everything right now.
Yeah, and well, and that's the other thing too is the Lucha Underground comic. I don't know if you saw the second, I believe, yeah, the second page of the Imgur album that we got that had the comic strip on it. Well, not even a strip, the comic book on it. The second page has credits, and it's the story is by Justin Ortiz, who I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure he's probably kind of the person that helped to translate it from the TV medium to the comic medium. But then Christopher DeJoseph is the lead writer of Lucha Underground. So the guy writing the show helped to write, or maybe even wrote and then had someone else help him to kind of make it more comic friendly, the comic.
Right. And you can see like the end product, I think is absolutely amazing. I think it really does give great hype. For Ray's final, when he does arrive in the temple and you do see him on TV for the first time, I think this is a wonderful service, to Rey Mysterio fans, for people that are curious about where he's going to fit in the temple. I think this answers a lot of questions, and I'm just really grateful that they did this.
And I just looked up Justin Ortiz, who is the other writer on Google, and his Twitter is at or just Ortiz. It's at just Ortiz. He only has 347 followers, 348 now because I just followed him. But he said that there are going to be 4 issues total of this comic. So I think that's really cool that they're going to have 4 issues of it. All of them will be available for free, so it's not like we're stealing anything by getting it off of Imgur or anything like that. But yeah, the comic is great, and if you guys, if you are diehard Lucha Underground fans like we are, I would definitely recommend having a read. Read it, obviously panel by panel. John and I are going to actually talk about the story that we get in the first issue here. So if you want to read the comic first before you get any kind of discussion in, pause the video. I'll have the link to the comic's first edition in the description. Go check it out. It's a pretty quick read. It takes no more than 5 minutes, I would say, maybe 10 if you're a slower reader, which, admittedly, I'm not the fastest reader. But yeah, it's really good, and it's a nice little digestible dose of Lucha Underground in between episodes, and I love that.
I love it too. And one more thing I want to kind of discuss with you before we get in the comic. I wonder if this comic series is going to play itself out before Ray even debuts, depending on the rate at which they're released. Yeah, that would be
That would be
something
very
curious.
interesting. I mean, admittedly, I do think that Ray is going to debut on the second or third episode.
Right.
That's complete speculation on my part, though. I have no clue for sure.
Right, because I mean, I don't know the rate at which, again, these comics are going to be released, so you're probably absolutely right. But if they were released in a relatively, timely fashion, it would be cool to see that story play out. And then at the final issue, maybe Ray's like final line of dialogue would be like, "It's time," or "Okay, let's go," or just something that would let you know, oh man, now the action's going to go into television, which I think would be really cool. I doubt it'll happen like that, but just a thought that popped in my head that I thought was worth putting out there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, guys. So if you want to read the comic without us spoiling it, I would pause the video right here, right now. I'll have the link in the description. Go check it out, read the whole thing, and then when you're done reading the comic, come back. Otherwise, if you A, don't care about having it spoiled, or B, already read it, let's get into this discussion. John, what do you think?
Absolutely. Let's do it, my friend.
Okay, so this is just, we're not going to, go frame by frame. If you want to read the whole thing, go read it. But what we are going to do is just kind of talk about each point. We start off with Ray beating somebody in a match, and then we see him in the locker room, and I don't know who it is, but some guy comes in and tells him El Dragon Azteca is dead. And Ray is just like, all right, that's it. Put the lockdown on everything, cancel everything on my schedule. I need to take care of this. And he even says specifically, I need to find the kid. So we aren't, and by we, I mean, the viewer, the audience, we aren't sure who exactly the kid is at this point, but we will find out by the end of this comic, which is cool. So that's another thing that I like about it is, we get some cliffhangers, but we also get some nice conclusions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could tell, like, straight away they set a serious tone. Ray hears the news and already, like, he's just all business, wanting to go find, the kid, as he calls him. I'll just say, too, from an aesthetic point of view, I love how this comic's drawn. I mean, Ray looks freaking ripped here, man. Like, goddamn.
Yes! I love that you brought that up. I was literally, I was sitting here thinking, as soon as he's done making his point, I'm going to talk about how amazing the art style is. And you did it for me. So mental uplink is real. But yeah, it looks great. Rey Mysterio looks like Rey Mysterio. The Disciples of Death, who are in the story, look like the Disciples of Death. Vampiro, maybe the least true to real life rendition of the people in this comic. But still, if you know it's Vampiro, you look at it and it's like, yeah, that's Vampiro.
Yeah, yeah. And I just like everything from like the shading again to the detail, just really well done from an artistic point of view. But yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
story wise, I completely agree with you. Nice little cliffhanger. So let's continue.
I don't know about you, John, but just seeing Lucha Underground in comic book format makes me want them to do like a kid's cartoon.
Yeah, really.
Like they used to have those. Oh, what was that? They used to have a show that had masked like luchadors fighting in a ring. I don't remember what
A
it was.
Mucha Lucha, I think it was.
Yes! Oh
show.
my god, the nostalgia trip. Yeah, they used to have something like that. So like, I want a Lucha Underground that's like a Saturday morning cartoon show.
Oh man, they'd have to take away so many elements to make it kid friendly.
No, they really wouldn't though. They really wouldn't have to take away that much because, like, okay, the biggest thing that they would have to take away is the over-the-top violence. You can still have some like punching and kicking and lucha moves and in-ring
Right.
stuff. But
Right.
and even then, I don't think they would even want to do that, because if you're making a kids cartoon, you're not going, like, if the kids want to watch wrestling, they'll find the Lucha Underground show to watch. Like when I was
Right.
8 years old, I was watching the Attitude Era, and maybe
Right.
my parents weren't super keen on the fact that I was watching that kind of wrestling. But if kids want to watch that, they'll find it. If you want to make a kids cartoon, it would probably be better if it was mostly out of the ring, maybe even out of the temple, or at least in the temple, but not in like the ring area, because it would make more sense if you were telling those backstage stories and telling character stories outside of the temple and out of the context of the ring and that kind of stuff. But we're getting off track. I think it would be awesome if they did a cartoon. I've been saying that about Chikara for a while too, but I've kind of
Yeah.
fallen out of love with Chikara because I feel like Lucha Underground does what they do, except a lot
There you go.
better. But back to the story. Obviously, he has to go find the kid, whoever that is. So then later on, we see that he shows up in Los Angeles. He sees the Disciples of Death chasing down and killing a couple guys, literally killing, like, electrocuting, I think, because then all you see is the Disciples of Death holding a couple skulls in their hands. Then you see Vampiro getting forcibly, against his will, taken to the insane asylum. So that right there tells me, like, no, he didn't check himself in. He didn't, it wasn't something that he wanted to do. He legitimately went insane. He was Vampiro. He couldn't make decide or realize that he was still Ian. He was like, in his own mind, Ian was dead and he was Vampiro. And they forced him into this insane asylum, and we obviously saw the result of that at the beginning of episode 1. So it's all fitting together like an amazing big puzzle that we just haven't gotten all the pieces to yet.
I love how his final statement before it cuts away from Ramiro, "I'll kill all of you." That's really comforting. I think a lot of chickens are going to come home to roost before that's all over this season.
Yeah.
A lot of people, what I loved in our, again, not to get too off track because then we'll return to the comic, but I love how in our first Lucha Underground review, a lot of people, some of the predictions of a lot of people related back to Vampiro. They didn't think he would be able to keep a lid on his quote-unquote rehabilitation. So a lot of people think that Vampiro is going to go off the deep end. And I certainly echo their sentiments. We'll have to see what happens there. But yeah,
It's so funny you bring that up, because I tweeted about this. The medicine that the doctor gave Vampiro, the antipsychotic, the allopiprasol or whatever it was,
right.
I looked that up, and it comes in tablets that are dosages 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30 milligrams in the real world. And Vampiro, the guy told him to take one of these twice a day. It's 400 milligrams.
Wow.
So either he's going to end up overdosing, or the loopiness that he kind of showed a little bit of in episode 1 is going to become really prominent as the season goes on. Because, like, I don't know if you caught it in episode 1, but, like, the first words out of Vampiro's mouth in the temple were, "I love you," to Matt Stryker. And then even later on, when Stryker brought up, like, the idea that, sure, like, the trio was being relatively sort of friendly-ish in their match, and that they weren't going for any, like, headshots or trying to kill each other or anything, that it was still for the title, and that they would really, bring out the fangs at one point. He said, "Salt sometimes, well, even salt looks like sugar." And then Vampiro turns to him and he goes, "You look like sugar."
Why does that sound like part of a conversation we'd have?
It does, but the idea is that Vampiro's loopy from the drugs, and I love it.
Oh my god, Lucha Underground. Oh, amazing.
You look like sugar. So good. Seriously, guys, if you don't believe me, go back and watch it. It's there, I swear. But anyway, so then we see Rey Mysterio in the temple, and he sees, all the Lucha Underground posters and the Katrina proprietor label on the door, and Mills' scary bone skull throne that he has now, and all that stuff. And then he decides, you know what? I gotta go find a lead. So he's walking in the streets, and some guy walks up to him, tells him to check out the fight. He goes, he sees a couple guys fight. He enters a fight because he wants to make a quick buck, but also because he wants a lead. Ends up against a guy with a mohawk that kind of looks like the Blob from X-Men, beats him, and then we get a flashback to when Ray was younger, apparently in Lucha Underground canon, El Dragon Azteca trained Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. You know, and what's funny is like if you know Ray's story, I've always heard that he began training as when he was 15 years old. He looks to be that age here, and I
Yep.
like that. You know, I think they really knew Ray's story inside and out, and they really did true to it while taking those artistic liberties again, having El Dragon Azteca being the trainer to further their own personal narrative. But yeah, I really love that they did this. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. So then the promoter offers Ray some money. Ray turns it down and says that all he wants is information. The promoter, being a promoter, which traditionally is kind of a scumbag and sleazeball and slimy and etc., says, I can't help you. And then Ray chokes him out and he's like, all right, fine, maybe I can help you. And he gives him some information. So next thing you know, Ray is walking up to this, it looks like a bouncer guy, and he's telling him, you're not going to make me hurt you, are you? And then the guy just kind of hands him some paper, and he ends up on the temple rooftop, which is where he finds El Dragon Azteca Jr., who I've been assuming is the guy in the white hoodie from last season. And if you even look at the picture, he is wearing a white hoodie, although it's not stylistically the same as the guys from last season. But I think that that's the same guy, right?
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you, dude.
The
I
guy
got
that
the
put on the El Dragon Azteca mask at the very end of the season.
Yes. Yes, I got a similar impression. There you see in the background on the Lucha Underground billboard that question mark that he left. And now, yeah, him and Ray just converge here at this rooftop. Just very interesting. So, yeah, I agree with your assessment. That is going to be the guy that put on the mask at the end of last season. So,
And
very
then
interesting.
he actually offers El Dragon Azteca's mask to Ray, and Ray turns it down. He says the mask is too powerful, and El Dragon Azteca Jr. says, we need revenge. And Ray says, I'm not a revenge seeker, I'm a peacekeeper. And that's, and then together you and I will bring justice to Lucha Underground. And that's the last we see of him. So maybe that is going to lead to Ray debuting on this week's episode, and we'll kind of pick up from where this story left off, no?
Yeah, I agree with you. And if I could just say something else in relation to this comic and how much I enjoyed it, this comic has actually given me more of an interest in Rey Mysterio outside of the fact of, oh man, it's Rey Mysterio in Lucha Underground. Because what I find interesting about this comic, reading it again with you panel by panel, Ray seems to have like a more aggressive tone to him. He has a purpose, and then that whole line, like he is a peacekeeper, which seems in line with the Ray that we've always known, babyface for life, and that they're going to bring us to the temple. I hope he has a more nuanced character coming to the temple than what we've known him in WWE and I presume AAA. I really hope that, it's not the same Rey Mysterio we're used to, because I think Lucha Underground has a tendency to take things that we conceive as old and make them feel like new again. So I'm really curious what they do character-wise with Ray, if there will be any changes at all. If not, I'll still be down for the ride, you know that, but I just felt like this comic had a very interesting portrayal of Ray, and I'd like that translated into television. So, yeah, I just want to put that
Absolutely.
up
And
there.
I agree with you on that completely. Yeah, I really like this comic. I am looking forward to the second, third, and fourth issues. It's really cool the way that they've gone about making it canon, but not necessarily vital to the people that just want to watch the show. I was telling you before we even recorded, it kind of reminds me of Marvel's one shots in that they're entertaining and there might be like a wink and a nod to one of them in either a TV show or a movie. But if you don't pay attention to the one shots, it's not going to hurt your experience with the movies and TV shows.
Right.
It's the same thing with Lucha Underground. Like the comics are cool, and maybe we'll get like a hint or a wink or a nod to the comics on the show. But I would imagine that if you don't read the comics, it's probably not going to hurt your viewing experience of the shows at all.
Exactly. So, I mean, I would encourage everybody to read these comics because it seems like it's going to tell a really great story alongside the TV show. So, like Ashton said, he will have a link to the first one in the description box. And guys, get a conversation going. I mean, do you think that the way Ray's portrayed here will translate it all into TV? What did you think about the story that was told here? Let's have a good discussion about this. I just love that Lucha Underground is expanding and experimenting with different mediums to tell their story, and I think this was a success for the first issue. So,
Oh
I
yeah,
really
and
enjoyed it.
also apparently it has been officially announced that season 3 is going to be a thing. That's That's something that we just kind of assumed was the thing, but now it's official, so that's even better. And Lucha Underground is trying to get seasons 1 and 2 on iTunes. So, not necessarily Netflix, but still a really awesome next step for them as far as integrating themselves into the mainstream goes. I love it.
Well, actually, I think it's superb that they announced the third season already because just think about how much it hung in the air if there was even going to be a second season the first time
Absolutely.
around.
Yeah, that's
And
that's
then,
huge.
yeah, they come right out of the gate now and say, yeah, there's going to be a third season, which is amazing because you and I and everybody, as I assume we're already going to do anyway, like you said, there was really no question. I mean, it's Lucha Underground. You'd have to be crazy not to want to see this thing continue. But now we can invest fully in it, knowing definitively this isn't going to be the end and we can just lose our goddamn shit every week, which I have every intention of doing. So, yeah, good times indeed.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, this was our first ever discussion on anything comic book related. But of course, it had to be Lucha Underground because Lucha Underground is the best thing going today. And yeah, I don't even have anything else to say. So, John, any closing thoughts?
No, man, this comic was excellent. Be sure, again, guys, to take advantage of it down in the description. Read it, give us your thoughts. There are going to be, like you said, actually, what, 4 issues in total? So you guys will
Yep.
probably want to follow the story. We're definitely going to be following the story. And again, I just want to reiterate what Ashton said at the beginning. If you guys want us to do more commentaries on these, tell us in the comments. If you want comic analysis, let us know. I really appreciated the
I
comments that
don't
we
even
got.
consider it analysis either. I think it's more just like a discussion. Like we're talking about it, and then people comment, and we get to talk with them about it. It's really more like we're just all just having a discussion because it's not like we're looking at each pixel of each frame and trying to break down like, oh, what could this mean or anything like that. We're just
Right.
talking about what the comic is, and we want other people to not only know about it, but to be able to talk with us about it as well.
Yeah, so if you want this to just be a further extension of our Lucha Underground evangelism, just let us know down in the comments. We will we'll see how that pans out. And guys, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and take care, everybody.